Hi, I'm Terry Brock, and today I want to talk about what's going on in the world with professional speaking, and we've got a treat for you. Joining me right now live via Skype, we have Paul du Toit joining us from Johannesburg, South Africa, and Alan Stevens from England. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us today.
It's a pleasure.
You're welcome.
Well, there's a lot going on we see in many places around the world, but I'm very interested in what is working in today's market for speakers that want to get out there and be successful. Paul, we'll start with you as we look over there to South Africa. You're traveling around the world a lot. What do you see that's working today in this economy particularly?
What we're finding is that people really want stuff that they can take home and do something with, Terry. And we're finding that when people come away from conferences, they're very often bamboozled with too much overload and too much information.
Yeah.
So speakers that can simplify their message and put a few simple concepts across in a few very tight and interesting bites and be able to elaborate on those points, specifically illustrating them using things like stories, are often the speakers that get remembered, and they're often the speakers that then get invited back again because people talk about one or two key messages that came across really strongly. And we're finding that this is happening more and more. Yeah,
going back to the idea of stories, that tends to work internationally. Alan, from your perspective, you're a media coach and you help people with media. Do you find that stories help also there in Europe and England?
Stories are a big thing, obviously, and stories are what media people want. Media people like me want stories. But another trend that I've noticed is that people want a longer-term relationship with their speakers. You can't just fly in, do a 40-minute speech and fly out and expect to give good value for money. And increasingly what I'm finding is that meeting planners are asking you to have a pre-event webinar or to talk to people in a social medium like Twitter or Facebook for a month or two before the event, and then do the speech and follow that up when you get back to your home country with another webinar answering questions and so on. So what you're doing is supplying a longer-term relationship with your audiences, even though your audiences may be on another continent.
Yeah, I would agree. We find that they're really looking for a relationship, not just that one-time speech. Those are good, but think of the rich learning experience and the learning environment that we can create through a host of tools like webinars, like teleseminars, like using Skype as we are right now. And that can be very helpful. Paul, from your point of view, you're in a market where sometimes the bandwidth is a little bit low. What kind of cautions and what kind of words of advice would you have when someone's using a tool like Skype, but they don't have as much bandwidth?
Terry, we're sitting in a situation right now where our bandwidth is not really good enough to be doing regular webinars. They are happening. People are using Skype, but it's not stable enough. We know that it's coming pretty shortly, but at this point in time, South Africa is still very, very big on live speakers getting up there and delivering their message. And what they're looking for something is really something that's very punchy, that gets the message across. And as Alan mentioned, those relationships are vitally important because people are looking more for somebody that develops that instead of just walking off after having done a speech.
Yeah, absolutely. And matter of fact, we'll put in a shameless plug here for your book that you're able to help people making presentations, and they can use those kind of ideas. And I find the interesting thing about what you say, Paul, is that it works internationally. It's not just like, oh, this only works here in South Africa. It's amazing the principles that work elsewhere. And Alan, I'd say the same thing for you as the media coach. And matter of fact, I understand you have an e-zine that goes out. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, well, actually, yes, the Media Coach e-zine is something that's been going out every Friday morning for the last 9 years and goes out to thousands of people around the world. And I just give media tips and advice, and it's about regularity. And I think that's another aspect of this longer-term relationship. The fact that people want regular contact, a regular feed of information from you. And once upon a time, speakers were just people who turned up and did stuff and went away again, and they were never heard of. And I think whether it's international or local, we can no longer get away with that. And coming back to that bandwidth issue that you were talking about with Paul there, I think a lot of stuff can be now done just on audio. We were talking before we came on air about webinars being destroyed by people putting up loads of slides. But what you can do is that you can simply do an audio delivery. You can if you have slides, you can put them on SlideShare. People can pull them down later on. And you can find ways of delivering content that people can reassemble themselves in different ways after the event.
Yes, I agree. I think that there's a real strong place for audio. Audio is particularly good. Oh, for instance, you're on a long flight and you don't want to watch something, you can do that. Or driving is very good. And when you're trying to deliver content of an interview. But I think video comes in, like we were talking before about cameras. Well, I just happen to have with me my Sanyo Zacti, a great little tool here. And the nice thing about it, I'm not selling this, but you can see what it is. And by showing it on the screen, it takes it to a whole new level versus just on audio. So I think that in today's environment, one of the things we're seeing in the States is we are deploying a great number of tools. There's a lot available, and it can seem overwhelming at first, but I'm going to tip a hat to you two gentlemen who stress the fundamentals of speaking. Don't get all caught up in the technology. It's nice, we use it, yes, but really rely on those tried and true methods of speaking and communicating with people, much like our ancestors would have done standing on a tree stump hundreds of years ago to talk to a group of people. Paul, that's what I hear in your books, and would you concur with that?
Well, very much so, Terry. In fact, one of the reasons why nervousness is associated with speaking is that we forget very often that in the olden days, when people were standing on a tree stump giving speeches, it was usually only the chief, the king, the religious head, or maybe a teacher. Nobody else had to do presentations, and we're surprised now when we have to get up and give a presentation, and we find it nerve-wracking, and it's because it's something that we need to learn to do. And the speakers that become most experienced are the ones that end up generally giving the best speeches because they've become used to doing it. And it's all a question of that 10,000 hours.
Yep, I think so. That makes a lot of sense. Alan, what do you think?
Well, I'm absolutely right. And I often say the only way to get good on stage is to get good on stage. And that's what we all do. You know, we spend our time on stage. So I would say to anyone who's aspiring to be a speaker, whether it's local or national or international, get yourself on stage. Get as many opportunities as you can to get yourself on stage and have somebody in the audience that will give you some good feedback.
Yes, agreed.
We all do that, even as seasoned professionals.
Yep.
We all do that. We all act as spotters for each other. And we give each other brutally honest advice when we come off stage, and that's what will improve your speaking career.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And getting that brutally honest advice from people that support you and want the best for you, that's really where there's a lot to be said for being involved in associations like Professional Speakers Association of the UK or Southern Africa or the National Speakers Association here. And there's many organizations. Alan, how many do we have now? How many nations involved?
11 national associations.
11 national associations that are around the world. And there's a real good reason to do that for a business, that it helps you and you establish relationships like the three of us have, but we also are able to improve our skills as speakers and be able to understand other ways to communicate. Like before, when we were talking about standing on the stump and speaking, that was the one way to do it. Today, we have so many different areas, and there are different skill levels involved. Different skill level involved in being able to communicate via audio and video on a computer like we are now using Skype, than saying standing in a group when you're doing a keynote or a training session or a webinar. All require different kinds of skills.
Absolutely.
One of the things that we're finding very much with our association, Alan and Terry, is that we're an association of experts who speak. And therefore, from time to time, we get people asking us, well, who do you know that speaks on this? And it's, of course, the easiest thing in the world to recommend one of your colleagues. And, of course, the strangest thing, the moment you recommend one of your colleagues, you tend to find that it bounces back at some stage, not that you did it for that reason. And this year has been a particularly good one for me, having recommendations from colleagues of mine and finding a reasonable amount of business emanating from it. So
yes,
although one doesn't join for the reason of getting more business, generally, if you give, you tend to get.
Yeah, that's true. It just keeps coming back. Well, gentlemen, it is really good to have you with us, but I'm not going to let you get away without finding out how people can get in touch with you. So, Alan, somebody wants to reach you and they want to get in touch. What's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, I'm very easy to find. You've mentioned Media Coach. They can look up Media Coach on Google. They will find me on page number 1, or alan@mediacoach.co.uk, Media Coach on Twitter, and funnily enough, I'm Media Coach on Facebook and LinkedIn too. Excellent.
And Paul, how about yourself?
If you want to get hold of me, it's pauldutoit.net, and it's PAULDUTOIT.net.
.net, very good. And of course, I'm Terry at terrybrock.com, or just terrybrock.com on the website. But thank you both, gentlemen, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Terry.